Hello world of sim racing and welcome to another episode of me talking to a camera. Welcome to the Esports Diaries, and today we're gonna have obviously F1 analysis of the past Saudi Arabian Grand Prix that has been taken out in Jeddah on a brand new track that has been pulled up literally within months and within weeks. And we got an awful lot to talk about, even so much that I made up myself a little list. On that list we find the following topics: the new circuit, Lewis yellow flag gate / FIA, the Alpine performance, Max Verstappen feeling pressure, the race, and in the end FIA / materials. So most of that point's probably been pretty self-explanatory. However, let's get on with the first obvious thing, the circuit itself. A very impressive work by the Saudi Arabians to pull out a full F1 track literally within a month. How this was possible, we probably do not really want to know, because I am not 100% sure if we would all appreciate the ways this has been conducted. That's the only thing I'm going to say towards it. But let's talk about the circuit itself. 27 corners, lots of high speed, dead angles, dead apexes everywhere, like literally everywhere. We have one banked corner. A final turn that opens up to be 20 meters wide kind of, and then closes into like actually 2 car width wide. It is a circuit that kind of has everything. A second gear turn, which is turn 2, and from then on like a narrow kind of chicane, channel of chicanes coming up, like this incredibly, this so tight turn 3 that opens into 4 and then 5 left, right, left again. So that's 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, and then turn 10, 11, or is it 13 already? Like the long corner that got this banking angle to the left, and like all the way back to the start finish line, all you find is like high speed chicanes. Going from one wall to another. So I think the circuit itself is fascinating to drive on, isn't it? Like just from the nature, just from how it looks like. I want to race on it. No, I don't want to race on it. I want to drive on it. I think it is a great hot lap track. I think it is an extremely technical and dangerous track. But is racing really a good thing on it? I'm not 100% sure. We've seen a full F1 race, we've seen a couple of F2 races, we've seen overtaking, yes. Seemingly it is possible with 3 DRS zones right after each other, with at least one slow corner in between, that you can do overtaking. But is it really that great of a track to race on? Like, in the beginning stages of the race, when you've seen Lewis Hamilton behind Max Verstappen in the first sector, losing half a second up to 8/10 in a single sector due to the dirty air and everything. I mean, yes, the Mercedes was running lower downforce levels, quite rightly so, but 8/10, really? That is a shed load amount of time that you lose just in dirty air and driving with a little less downforce, isn't it? Felt even higher and even more of a discrepancy between both cars than in qualifying that was. So, I mean, likewise interesting that Lewis always closed down 3/10 in the middle sector just on a single straight, even without using DRS. So that kind of highlighted what kind of different downforce levels those cars were running. But generally speaking, we've seen Leclerc into the wall, we've seen Mick Schumacher into the wall at the point, like right in that location where everyone said this corner is the most dangerous one with it being high speed. If something goes wrong, the wall on the other side comes back so quickly, and it happened twice. And also the way, Sainz crashed in the qualifying. Alonso spun, I think, in both qualifying and the race in the end. Not quite sure if Ocon was the other Alpine spinning out on qualifying there in turn 8-9 complex, but it is such a high speed track, and the cars have been put under enormous pressure, under enormous downforce as well. And if anything just goes wrong, there is no, we're always discussing whether there is gravel or whether there's just a runoff area. But here you had nothing. I don't know. I was looking at it and like, yeah, okay, it's a fascinating track, but I don't want to see anything go wrong there. And we've seen it in F2. We've seen it then in F1 as well. The first restart was a 100% issue of the track being so narrow, so small, and so tight. And actually, people can be happy that it happened kind of in the low speed part of the circuit. Like, imagine. I don't know, imagine someone to spin in turn 22, miraculously keeping out of the wall, but then somehow being stationary after turn 23. You go completely blind into some corners. It's probably even worse when you like what happened with Mazepin and Hamilton. And that actually gets us to the second topic, the Lewis yellow flag gate kind of thing. Yes, Lewis has not been 100% warned of that there is Mazepin coming from behind, but Mazepin was turning into turn 5 to the left. And Hamilton was on the apex of turn 6. But you get, Mazepin got so surprised. It was tremendous scenes. To me, that is a safety concern, pretty much. When people going around corners where they can't see it. I'm not even saying this should be on any circuit whatsoever, that you're coming over a hill, not seeing what's behind it. Sometimes, of course, there's nothing you can do, like in Monaco or elsewhere. That is a classic street circuit where you not can see what happens behind. But, whatever it is, Monaco or Singapore or any other street circuit, like even Baku, yes, you cannot see what's behind the other corner, but apart from Baku, the quick left-right-hander, there is not really, there's not really a spot where you go over 160, 170, 180 kilometers an hour, where you're going into a blind spot, into a blind turn, into a blind apex whatsoever. Yeah, so from that point of view, surely a fun track, probably really enjoyable to drive, but holy F, safety wise, I'm not 100% sure if that is a really good track in that regard. But okay, we've seen race 1, easy for us to speak about that now. Again, I'm just giving my personal opinion on this one. So yeah, that is my personal opinion on the track. Now let's talk about probably the first burning point, the first topic of the weekend that got the parties undecided on whether that outcome is right or wrong, which is Lewis Hamilton not getting penalized for a yellow flag infringement in FP3. So I can disagree with a lot of people actually. I can agree with the Max and Red Bull fans and everyone that said, wait a minute, we got penalized in Qatar for ignoring yellow flags. So why is that not a penalty now? From a consistency point of view, I can understand it, that people are unhappy about that decision making of FIA and the stewards. Is it 100% to understand? Probably not, because Max indeed got that penalty for a double waved yellow flag, despite track was called clear. I'm not sure exactly what was on the dash back in the time in Qatar on Max's steering wheel. Can't remember. I think there was a yellow flag shown at some point, but in the actual moment when he was at the post, you've only seen the two yellow flags being waved, but nothing on the dash, if I remember correctly. So, and FIA has made the decision to not penalize Lewis Hamilton because of two things. There was never ever been a yellow flag command given out on track. So it was the marshal that accidentally has activated the flag indicator on the top left to wave yellow, whilst that should not have been. Furthermore, nothing on the dash. And then, and here we are back to the topic of safetiness. The incident occurred between turn 5 and 6. So 5 was a mighty quick left-hander that swung it immediately into the right-hander. So even while you're still cornering to the left, you're focusing already to the right on the next apex. So while Lewis was facing to the right, the board that has shown the yellow flag here on the top left, like, you know, probably not in the peripheral vision anymore anyway. So one could have asked FIA why exactly the board was hung up on the top left side on the exit of the corner, rather than right on the apex on the into the next hand corner, into the right hand, where the board would have visually, you know, looking into the apex and looking into the board, would have fitted so much more clever, I would say. So that would be the first thing one would have to ask FIA about, you know, giving the track a clear to race on the green track status. So that certainly would be the question I would be raising. Given the fact that the board was where it was, though, I am very confident that for the short period of time and for the further no notice at all, Lewis Hamilton probably didn't even realize and never ever had the chance to understand and realize the current circumstances and push mode that he was in, that there has been a yellow flag. Hence, I think why the steward said, despite free practice and despite his safety concern, maybe that's why they said no further action, or just got, did he get reprimanded? I think he got at least reprimanded. Well, which is another thing, because if he now gets another reprimandation, if that's a word, then he needs to serve a 10 plays grid penalty for Abu Dhabi. So we all know what that's going to mean for his chances to get world champion in the end. So yeah, I very much agree with the Max Verstappen fans and with the Red Bull people and with everyone that said we don't understand why that wasn't a penalty. I kinda can understand also the reason why there was no penalty. Still, this answer has, you know, two sides of the medal. Because at the end of the day, Max's situation has been quite the same unless there was like a clear threat on track and there was a clearly double waved yellow of the marshals. Either way though, if you just look at both incidents, they are 100% identically the same, whilst differently judged. And that people gonna disagree with that, I can very much empathize on that. Yeah, as already mentioned, one could say it could be a less severe thing, that this was just like for a millisecond and this was completely out of Lewis' side and Lewis had no chance to look at it. But yeah, again, if you look at it on a factual basis, I can understand the frustration of Red Bull saying some decisions were against them or not really favoring them. Right, next up on my little snippet, I have the Alpine performance. The Alpine performance was something really interesting because I knew, and I remember from qualifying, that they were struggling quite a bit. Alonso did not make it into Q3, hardly even made it into Q2. Yes, Ocon has been a bit better, made it into Q3 at least, and was a little bit more solid in general. But when you just look at where they were in Qatar, easy third quickest car on the grid, both of the cars. And then you look at Jeddah and Saudi Arabia and Qatar, both those tracks have been high-speed corners, high-speed circuits, should have suited that Alpine a lot more. And then you saw Alonso. Alonso was struggling big time, especially in the race. Holy moly. He was really off the pace, starting P10 or P9 and then getting quickly dropped further behind, later on even spun during the race. So he was having severe issues with the car and severe performance issues, whereas Ocon, on the other hand, like, he kind of kept the position in the first part of the race, and then even after the restart, I mean, he nearly actually got third. That is how quick he was with the car, just 25 seconds behind the winner. Now you can always argue how fast have those winners really been, as they were like doing stuff to each other that we're going to talk about later in the episode still. So yeah, it was quite impressive to see Alonso, that generally has made a stronger appearance throughout the entire season. Yes, I know that Hungaroring has been won by Ocon, but overall I think Alonso has been ahead in points till the race. And he has the overall better performances, I believe. It was quite interesting to see Alonso struggle that much, whereas Ocon was able to perform well in the car. So yeah, the Alpine performance is certainly something interesting, as the diversity between both drivers has been extremely huge, which was something very unusual and kind of caught my attention on this one. Okay, next up, after Alpine, I have noted the feel of pressure for Max Verstappen. So, we all have seen that massive flyer he was on in the qualifying. I believe in the qualifying trim, due to the high downforce, the Red Bull car has been 3, maybe 4/10 better than the Mercedes in the qualifying trim on a single lap, heating up the tires, getting the tires into the window. And then we have seen Max doing something what I think we've never saw this year. I can't recall or can't remember a single qualifying where Max did really screw up the lap so bad that it has made a mega difference. And with mega difference, I mean anything worse than 2/10 really. The mistake itself would have probably been half a second, I guess. I believe it would have been quite close for pole position still, because I think at that point he was 4 or 5/10 up. It was an impressive lap. But the way he has then put the car into the wall made me thinking of like, okay, wait a minute. I mean, I know you're pushing die hard and you want to still maximize the exit performance as much as possible after that F-up. But even a bunker lap from then on, or a bunker final turn, would have easily got him into pole position. And I'm not saying like turn on your brain or whatever. That's absolutely not the point. I know it myself. Like when you're on a flyer, you keep pushing, you keep pushing, you keep pushing, and even if you know you are 4, 5, 6 tenths ahead of P2 and of your strongest contender, you keep pushing. So from that point of view, it's like no surprise to me that he kept squeezing out everything of that car till the end of the lap. But like the lap in itself, holy F, I thought he would have planked the car in turn 2 already. And after he was been so close on the exit of 13 and 16, like we've all seen the reactions from the paddock. We've all seen Fernando Alonso and Daniel Ricciardo being like, what? And I was the very same in front of that TV. I was the very same. And then I saw him crash him into the wall. And that felt surreal, you know. Like from the angle the camera was pointing at the car for the final turn on the live feed, you didn't even see the lockup on the inside tire. But then you just saw him going a little wide, and I was like, okay, he's just overshot the corner. And then he came back, and suddenly he was in the wall, and I was like, wait, what? What have I just seen? And I was surprised. I was simply surprised, and I was like, is that now the pressure really on? Like Red Bull has worked very, very hard in FP1 and FP2 for qualifying trim, also FP3, which they eventually have won. And in the meanwhile, they have not done a single long run, I believe, with Max. 3 or 4 laps in a row, but you know, if you use 2 or 3 laps to get the soft tire into the working window for qualifying simulation, then I believe that is like, you know, as much of a long run as the other as the laps they did in the end in FP2. So they clearly have sacrificed the race preparation for qualifying and trying to get track position, which, yeah, was important on this track, on the street circuit in general, yet less important than on a track like Singapore, less important than on a track like Hungaroring, I believe, and also less important than Monaco, obviously. I was surprised you could do overtaking quite well, but coming back to the point, the way he crashed into that wall, being too greedy, being too, you know, kind of not accepting the mistake right now, I was like, maybe someone is actually showing a little sign of pressure getting into him. Arguably. It was not like super evident at that moment. Could have been just a single F up, like Lewis did that too in the stages of the year. Whereas lately though, Lewis has just been on point. Let's face it. Like now, this is the biggest difference between both rivals. The one has done it 7 times, have been put under pressure by the teammate, by Vettel 2 years ago, whether that Ferrari was legal or illegal, topic aside. But Lewis consecutively had the feeling of getting pressurized from somewhere. And when you're Max Verstappen and you're always saying like, yeah, it's good and great that we're just fighting or being in the opportunity to fight for the title at this stage of the year, 11th, 12th, 13th, 15th, 16 races into the season. But now it is race 22 of 23, so let's face it, like you had 20 occasions where you could say that, oh, it's just great that we're up there. But now you're up there, and now you need to, you know, to keep it up and get it over the line. And lately, with the Mercedes and Lewis turning the momentum around, I could well imagine that, especially on a guy that's just 25 years or 24 years old, no matter how professional he is, At the end of the day, we're all human beings. And at the end of the day, we just need to remind ourselves 14 years back, 2007, 2008, how did Lewis Hamilton manage some stuff? And back then Lewis Hamilton was 23 years old. I see some similarities, I see some parallelities, and I see some stuff that reminds me on a Lewis 13, 14 years ago. Not only in like bad or good ways, either way, but remember we've seen Lewis Hamilton beaching on the pit entry into Shanghai. That's where he lost the championship back then, on that used up medium tire. So I think this may be the difference between the two guys that is now making, the difference between win or loss to a certain extent, speaking about pressures and so on. So Max feels the pressure and knows the situation and feels the situation he is in. He was desperately trying to hold on to that qualifying lap that was so important. He was desperately trying to hold on for P1 on the first restart. He was desperately trying to hold on to P1 for the second restart. He was desperately trying to hold on to the lead during the race. Like literally every action that Red Bull was doing on race day was a desperate try to somehow make it work. Red Bull and Max Verstappen both together. And if you don't feel the pressure, you don't get desperate. You just do your stuff, you just somehow manage it, you just take it easy. But of course, I mean, it's a complete downwards trend since 3 races that Red Bull and Max Verstappen are suffering from. After Mexico, literally everything has turned out to be against them to a certain extent. Like probably having Lewis disqualify in Brazil felt like a match ball to them on Friday, Saturday afternoon. But what happened then in Brazil, that defeat must have hurt 10 times harder than the defeat of Lewis in Mexico. I'm pretty sure. And I don't think that you can argue around that really. So yeah, pressure is rising, pressure is going up. I think Max has felt that in the race, in the qualifyings, and has done maybe some small mistakes from it. Whereas Lewis on the other side just tried to manage to kind of dodge all the situations and so on. It will be an interesting thing to see into Abu Dhabi. Like, it is over 40 years back that both contenders go into the final race identical on points, and well, how do we like to say, winner takes it all, right? There is no tactiing. There is only one opportunity of tacticking, and I quite hope that we don't see that. Really hope. But then let's actually have a talk about the race itself. So I believe, as far as my brain allows me to scroll through the years, this is the most insane, the most difficult to understand, and the most chaotic and extraordinary F1 race I have ever witnessed. There have been a lot of drama races, there have been a lot of insane races that will be, all times best and so on. But this race was something special. Like, starting crash and the red flag is rare, is really, really rare. Especially then, the race to be restarted in starting grid order is rare as well in that regard. And we had it 3 times this race. 3 freaking times. Like, so insane. I couldn't quite believe, like, you know, the drama, like Mercedes going in, both changing both the tires, actually, you know, sending Bottas as a block for Red Bull and so on, and then the red flag. Like, I was fuming. I was so fuming. I was like, I cannot believe this. Like, why have not just red flag straight away? Wasn't it, like, obvious enough? But anyway, that red flag came, and then we got going again. We got Verstappen in the lead with a weird maneuver, then somehow Ocon in between, and then we had this other massive crash with Leclerc tapping Perez, and I gotta say, like, Perez' gearbox broke in a less hard impact than Max had on qualifying on the wall. Like, what is that gearbox? Interesting. I'm pretty sure it's just pure coincidence, but poor Perez out of a DNF because of something that he's actually had no chance to avoid for. Poor guy, really poor guy. Anyway, yeah, that is the drama behind all that. And then obviously, you know, the race got going again, and we had the second red flag, and then what on earth was FIA doing there? Like, we're going to talk about that in a couple of minutes anyway, because I just want to focus and finish on the race itself. We've had a lot of interesting battles out there, with both Ferrari was fighting hard. We had Tsunoda who took out Vettel, and then Vettel came together with, was it Raikkonen at that time? I think it was Raikkonen. They got together too. And then, oh, excuse me, it's too late. I'm sorry. What else we had? Like, there was some proper battling going on, some proper overtaking, re-overtaking. Bottas again took ages to get past Ricciardo, yet alone the fact that he overtook Ocon in the end. I was surprised. I was amazed. I was literally amazed and surprised. I couldn't quite believe that this was really going on. That he really made it, because I was like, oh dear, like, so difficult to overtake. And then, you know, we know Bottas, when Bottas is behind other cars, and suddenly that Mercedes really becomes bad. Or, yeah, I don't know how to otherwise say it. It's very obvious that Bottas has a lot of issues when running in behind, not running in third or somewhere at the front. So, was a bit terrifying to see, actually. I was like, not sure if he really has the chance to move up forward, despite the car obviously was and is OP. Thankfully he did it right on the line, like a photo finish with Ocon. I don't know, what was the gap in the end? Less than a tenth? Less than a few hundredths, probably even. Poor Ocon, poor guy. But this F1 race, it had everything. The only thing it didn't have, and also didn't need to have, was rain. Imagine that track in the wet. Oh my goodie. Like, between walls of spray and walls of concrete, wall of concrete. Nothing you can see, isn't it? It's just, this track's so madness. And then it was quite interesting as well, like, this was a special race where the setup difference between favouring qualifying and favouring the race pace has been really evident. Remember that Mercedes have been off pace 4-5 tenths compared to Red Bull in the quali. In the race though, a complete different world. I believe, I mean, we've never actually seen it, but I believe that Hamilton at all times had surely 3, 4, maybe 5 tenths faster car at all times. In opening stint, obviously, he was managing AF, but I believe he could have surely gone faster. And yet, though, it was this interesting scenery that on a single lap, most of the guys were struggling to get the tire into the operating window, whereas in the race then, like especially the Mercedes was running really, really good with the tires. I was a bit surprised that they took the hard tire for Lewis, while actually taking and also gambling with a medium on Bottas, which effectively has worked out in the end too. But yeah, I was still surprised to see that. And another thing was what we need to talk about, and let's get on to the point with FIA and stuff, is the ruling. We need to fix the ruling. They need to fix driving behavior according to the ruling. This is a bit of a drama topic actually, and I just want to push it aside for another minute, as I want to come back on some material topic that still has to do with the race. Remember, Perez' gearbox broke literally so easy. Also, we've seen Tsunoda's front wing being, I mean, it was quite a massive hit with Vettel though still, but that front wing just literally snapped. Now, interestingly enough, and I have no idea how they quite did that, but how the hell did Lewis' front wing not just break with the contact of Ocon alone? Like the wing was bent so much to the left already that I have no idea how carbon fiber actually would survive this without snapping. Like, we're talking about flexing wings, not allowed to lean backwards, left and right and whatnot, but if there is something flexible on that Mercedes, then it's the it's the connection between the actual front flap and the nose of the car. Like, also, not just the hit of Ocon, also how he ran into the rear end of Verstappen. It's the same hard impact than Tsunoda on Vettel. That front wing was immediately gone. And on Lewis Hamilton's front wing, just the end plate broke away. And then Mercedes is coming around saying, oh, this is 4 or 5 tenths of speed disadvantage they have. And then he starts burning purple lap times in there. I was like sitting on the couch going, what am I looking at? What is this car? What is that performance of that machine? It was so insane. Like, completely out of the world. I haven't understood this. Like, I was looking at it. My first impression was like, fuck, he's gonna need to pit and that's it. That's championship sealed. And then I realized that he kept going, and yes, okay, Max had his tires issue then from the impact, and generally with the medium tire was already at the end of life. But how robust, resilient that Mercedes front wing is, it's just incredible. Like, this is where you see the difference between a top tier team with big development department and many ideas really on the edge of the rule book, and just like ordinary teams like AlphaTauri. And I'm not meaning this in any disrespect way, but surely that front wing of the Mercedes is somewhat flexible, and even if it's, just the mount of the front flap with the nose. So insane. I'm not sure if you guys actually feel the same about that. I'm happy to discuss that down in the comments. But yeah, and well, we've already spoken about the drama, and now we're gonna finally talk about probably what you guys, the reason why you guys tuned in. FIA ruling and then Max versus Lewis on track. Max has overdone it. Period. And I'm not saying this as a Hamilton or Mercedes fan. I'm saying this as a racing enthusiast, as a sim racer myself. If I would do the driving like this on any official R Factor 2 competition, I'd be on probation for at least the race, if not the full season. And he is sitting there saying, "Oh, I just won the race, blah blah blah." It's like I don't understand, and I can't empathize myself with that at all. I don't think it needs to be Lewis calling him a crazy man or whatever. That is overdue as well, over the top as well. But the driving standards needs fixing. Like Verstappen 4 or even 5 times in the race broke so late, not having an overlap whatsoever on the car, just really taking the risk of causing a collision. And if someone is driving there completely accepting and completely, and I mean easy accepting a collision, sorry, F1 drivers are meant to be to set a precedence for upcoming races. They shall be an example. You know, every single race they are talking about this. We race as one, we race for greater altogether, and we need to be examples. We need to give way, to learn, and we need to adapt, and we need to have our responsibility. And then you see this driving style. You see this driving behavior, and not just of him. Like a few guys have been battling so hard that they went off track there, but. You know, this needs to stop. Like, this is... FIA has done a big mistake in Brazil. And now everyone is suffering from that. Because, obviously, I can understand if they are now coming around like, hey, in Brazil everything has been fine, so why, if I do the kind of same thing now, it's illegal? This inconsistency of the FIA rulings. Same with Lewis. Lewis was pushing off Max in the final turn. That needs to be a penalty. It needs to be. And you guys know I'm a Mercedes fan, yes, but this needs to be a penalty. Like, I'm not the type of person that says you need to over-regulate racing and so on, and you need to deal with the penalties and all that stuff. But if you set out a rule book to race, and every race you set the boundaries of when the rule book is, when you're actually in breach with the rule book, you set them new, you define new levels, you define new borders, you define everything new. That's not real. That's not right. That shouldn't be the case. And I quite don't get it. And we can again discuss about the yellow flag gate. Then we can discuss about the pushing off gate. Then we can discuss about dive bombing and accepting collisions and pushing people off the track, defending the position off the track. So many things. And last but not least, we have lap 38. And you know, I'm not even ready to say this was a brake check or not. Like, of course, everyone is calling it a brake check because that's what it looked like. And if you look at the telemetry and the correct speed telemetry, the correct speed curves, and the fact that 2.4 G of deceleration has been measured, yeah, I mean, call it whatever you want. Call it a brake check, call it no brake check. Call it Lewis being stupid not to just drive aside. Yeah, call it whatever you want. Actually, in the position of Lewis, I can quite understand it. Like, Max is trying to pull on a 200 IQ move. And obviously Lewis is seeing that 200 IQ move and thinks, I got a 200 IQ as well, so just gonna cover it off. In sim racing we do this a lot. Like, either we weave on the straights, or I have also thrown dummies before DRS zones and so on. It is a strategic element, and I can understand Lewis not just going by and then get re-overtaken, because if he would have just done that, and you've seen 5 laps later what the result was, Max would have kept the position. And I would disagree that this leaving by and then attacking him on the next straight is deemed to be legal, which, remember, in 2008 at Spa, Hamilton, bus stop chicane on Raikkonen, did the same, let the Finn go, later on the Camel Straight just overtook, and everything was fine, and then suddenly after the race there was a 20-second penalty for him. So we have the precedent set there already. This should not have been allowed, and I can understand Lewis trying to cover up for that. I would have done the very same. Really, like as a racer, I would have just done the same. And yeah, one can blame Lewis for not passing by and probably even getting so close to the end of Verstappen, so he may have provoked it as well. But we have seen red lines being crossed in that race. We have seen sporting fouls. And well, one of my friends said one guy really made it easy to decide for which guy to cheer for in the final race, and I can very much agree with that. Like, not just the fact that I'm already doing so, not because I'm a Hamilton fan, I'm a Mercedes fan. I really want to make sure that there is a differentiation between that. But really, I do not consider, like, yes, Red Bull and Verstappen would deserve a championship just for the general performance and for being up there, being consistent. You know, in that regard, 100% hands down, they deserve it. But like, it is enough of trash shit actions going on off the track already with you know, people suing each other and pinpointing at each other and whatnot. But the way of driving and the way that the championship could already have been decided in that way, I highly disguise. I do disagree with my fullest of sporting manner. I disagree completely. I disagree that Schumacher should. I disagree with the fact that Schumacher is a 7-time world champion. Actually, he's a 6-time world champion and 1 time, like, I mean, Crashgate with in Adelaide. That is not how this season is allowed to be decided. If it is decided like this, I am. No, that is just no sporting success. Like, you can play some tricks and you can play games and whatnot, but if you start doing bad fouls, that is not what I consider sportsmanship in any way. But okay, that is different topic. Coming back to the FIA thing, which recently also has deemed the brake check to be a 10-second penalty. Interesting, clearly comes out that the FIA refuses as good as they can to take direct action, direct influence on that championship battle. Because I think, you know, for proper brake check and stuff, a drive-through should be awarded at the very least. Like, as we've discussed with Lewis and Silverstone, a drive-through or even stop-and-go penalty could have been introduced there as well. Maybe they tried to equal that up. But at the end of the day, you know, a 10-second penalty doesn't even change anything of the result. So to me, it's quite evident and quite clear that FIA did not want to impact that championship battle at the very least somehow. That goes out of the decision against Lewis with the yellow flag. That goes out in the decision against this brake check. That goes out in the warning of Lewis not pushing off someone else instead of a penalty. And last but not least, the most obvious point where this comes out, and I'm gonna come to a closing soon, is what happened between the second and the third start on the second red flag. Like dealing with penalties, like making agreements. We have a fucking rule book. Excuse me guys, we do have a fucking rule book. If there is a goddamn red flag, the classification of the last finished lap is what counts. We have had this in LMVS. We have had this in other F1 races. Effectively, the same kind of ruling that applied in Spa. Remember. And then, we have a restart, and on that restart lap, there is another red flag, which first means what happened on the restart is absolutely irrelevant from the point where it started onwards. And then there is another thing, I can agree with, if a position has been taken illegally, you just give it back. But the moment Ocon was in between, you couldn't just scale it back. Like the situation has completely changed. So that was actually outruled. So how the fuck did Ocon end up on pole position for the third start? That is completely out of my mind. If you go by the rules, red flag in the opening lap means there is a restart, which means everything goes back to as it was before the last lap, the lap started, which was Verstappen on pole, Hamilton, then Ocon. Now you could argue around with switching Hamilton and Verstappen around. That would to a certain extent be something I could agree with. But putting Ocon up, I'm happy for Ocon, 100%, but as to the rules, I don't think there is a procedure in that rule book that would actually allow for that movement. I don't know. Maybe I'm not deep enough into the rules. I couldn't understand it. All the calls, the multiple virtual safety cars, and that is another defense point, by the way, for Lewis Hamilton. I think in lap 38, we have had since lap 16, we've had 6 virtual safety cars, literally in a 4-lap rhythm. Every time Lewis' tires were warmed up, there was a virtual safety car for whatever reason. Then we had this virtual safety car for track debris, for debris on the track. I have not seen a single person on the track for 4 laps. What the hell? What the hell was I watching on that weekend? And this is what I mean as a defense. If Verstappen would have gone so slow and Hamilton got reprimanded on the yellow flag procedure from the FP3, I'm pretty sure the first thing that Lewis was thinking is, oh my god, is there another VEC? I may have missed that. And just slowed down and did not straight go for the gap, especially since he did not know that Max was instructed to give back the position. And there is another issue with communication between FIA and the teams. Yeah, there should be a possibility that FIA overrules any radio communication, which seemingly has been an issue at Mercedes. But so many things to go through, and this is the actual tragedy I do have with the race. As a diehard F1 guy, watching F1 for nearly over 20 years now, having quite a good understanding of the rule book, on a basic level, I, with my wisdom, was not able to follow what happened in that race, start to the last lap. No chance. I think Toto Wolff was over-exaggerating a little bit on Sky in the interview afterwards, but he was like, was it this, was it that? You tell me. I have completely lost oversight, and I was the same. I was flipping on the couch. And here is the fun fact. And I should have probably said that in the beginning, but anyway, here is the fun fact. I do have a smartwatch lately. And Sunday I was sitting on the couch literally all day. Lap 44. The watch said, congratulations, you've reached a daily activity goal. Because it was so stressful for the body, for my mind, for my brain, for my overall nerve. It was nerve-wracking. It was so stressful that my heart was pumping and my watch was thinking I was having a 2-hour walk. That is what the race has done. Anyway, guys, this episode is done way too long, but we did it. We have kind of worked through the list a little bit of things, and it kind of exaggerated up to full drama at the end, and now we can have a closing. Now I can go to bed. Hope you guys have a great week. Currently, iRacing is down as we wait for the Mercedes to come on the system, and we're gonna take out that car these days. So make sure you don't miss those streams. And other than that, have a good time, everyone. See you. Goodbye.